Hey, are you in the job market and you keep hearing this thing about ATS and being ATS compliant? What is an ATS compliant resume? Stick around, I'm going to share that with you today. Hello everyone, this is Liz M. Lopez, career and business coach, and today I'm going to talk to you about ATS compliant. I get that question all the time. What is this ATS compliant thing? Why does my resume need to be ATS compliant? What is that? Well, the truth is that the job market and the process of applying for jobs and getting selected for interviews has changed dramatically over the past 5 to 6 years. And one of the tools that most employers will use is something called an applicant tracking system. It's software. It's specialized programs, and there are thousands of different ones, which makes this even more complicated. But in general, it's a software program that reads your resume, decides if your resume has the right content that matches the job description, the posting, and if they sync up pretty good and you get a certain level of a score, then your resume will be passed on to a human, usually somebody in HR, who then does their own scanning and decides should you be called for an interview. So what are some of the things you need to know about making sure your resume can pass that process? First thing you need to know is there's thousands of different applicant tracking systems, some more sensitive than others, and there's not a universal answer, but there are some general practices that you can engage in that will help your resume be ATS compliant as possible so that you can make it into the new level of getting to a human. Getting yourself called in for an interview, which is ultimately what your resume is meant to do. It's meant to open the door. Resumes don't get you jobs. Resume gets you interviews. And here's how to make your resume ATS compliant. Okay, ready? Item number 1. Information in your headers and your footers typically cannot be read by applicant tracking systems. This means that if your contact information is in a header or in a footer, chances are the software can't pick it up. So you may have this beautifully amazing resume you put all this time in, or you invested in having professionally designed, and it gets to the software system. You look great, you match a lot, but there's no contact information. Why? Because the contact information, your name, your address, your email address, your phone number, all that stuff was in the header, and it didn't get passed on when it went to the log for a human. And what does the human do? The human being is not, look, these HR people are busy. They're not going to try to match up your resume with the system. They're just going to discard it. So avoid, you can use headers and footers strategically, but with not with critical information, because chances are it's not going to be read. So avoid the headers and footers. Item number 2, information in tables are typically not read by the applicant tracking systems. This is big, and let me explain why. I see this all the time when I'm looking online. Somebody will say, hey, how do I write a resume? And somebody will say, oh, just go online and figure out one of those templates, or just go to Microsoft Office and fill out a template. Well, the templates usually use tables or text boxes. And it looks really simple, right? You just go in, you type in all your information in the assigned boxes, boom, looks beautiful, you're good to go. Except that if you upload that to an online application, chances are you're going to experience what I call passive rejection, which basically means silence. You're not going to hear anything. If you've been applying for jobs and you're not hearing anything at all, chances are your resume is not ATS compliant, that you've used tables or text boxes in your design, and columns apply to that as well. These online templates are all designed with boxes so you can plug and play, but most applicant tracking systems cannot process those boxes. So your resume is either completely rejected just to begin with because it has those format elements, or B, it passes through, but all the information is jumbled, so much so by the time it gets to human, it's not legible and it gets rejected. So avoid text boxes and avoid tables, which means do not use a template to create your resume. You have to freehand it. You have to design a beautiful, amazing resume in Word document without using those features. Okay, columns, same thing. It used to be really popular to have like all the labels on one side and all the information on the other side. First of all, that style of resume is about 8 to 9 years old. It's not really relevant today. Modern resumes are, you know, these stylized, beautiful marketing documents, but they are not graphically designed. Yep. I know that's disappointing too, because there's some beautiful software you can use out there to use all this graphic design to make your resume look amazing. And you want it to look amazing, but you have to be very careful about using things like columns or design high-end graphic design elements, because again, your resume cannot go through an applicant tracking system if it has those elements. So be very careful about what you use to create the design, the look, and the feel of your resume. Color. Color is okay. You actually can use color. You can use font colors. You can use some lines and colors in certain places, as long as you're not using text boxes or tables. I know that's tricky. There's some ways to get some nice design elements into that without breaking the rules of ATS compliance, or breaking them just a little bit, because most applicant tracking systems will allow a few lines here and there, especially some underlining, and color is typically not an issue. So you're usually okay if you're using some of those elements to really make your resume pop. And then let's see, the last thing I'm going to mention on applicant tracking systems is to make sure that you do not include a picture of yourself on your resume. Doesn't happen too often. I work with a lot of clients internationally, and internationally is very common to have a picture on your resume. That is not done in the United States, and it has some very big cons to doing that. First of all, is that an employer may feel that if you have a picture on your resume, they may be more at risk to be liable under some kind of equal employment opportunity law. So they may reject your picture right off the bat, because they don't want to see you before they need to talk to you. You know, now with LinkedIn, if I have profile pictures, that's really not as relevant. But the biggest issue is that by having either JPEG or a PNG or a TIFF, some kind of file in that document, in that Word document, something attached to it, can cause the applicant tracking system to just reject your resume altogether. And then you get sucked into that vortex of passive rejection where you're applying, and no one's calling you for an interview. Most of the time when that happens, it's because your resume is not ATS compliant, or your content is not strong enough, which is a whole other conversation that we'll have at another time. So do make sure you hit your subscribe buttons and your bells, because I will talk to you about creating a powerful resume and up-leveling your content. But today, it's about these elements of your ATS compliant resume. So no headers, no footers, no tables, no columns, and no pictures in your resumes for maximum effect. Avoid the templates, avoid graphically designed resumes, use a Word document that you yourself create, and just learn those little tips and strategic ways to kind of make it look pretty, using a little bit of color and maybe some very carefully placed lines. If you are not sure at all how to go about any of that, then I suggest that you consult with a resume designer, whether that's me or somebody else. If you really want to maximize your job search, that resume has to be modern, it has to be ATS compliant, and it has to be, if allow me to say, kick ass. So make sure you talk to a professional if resume design is really not your thing. Investing in yourself can be transformational for the type of job that you land. Imagine if your job search was a month shorter and a 20% higher job offer. That could be really a really big change in your life. And that's exactly what I want for you. I want you to absolutely 100% secure a lucrative job that you absolutely love and that you dominate your career. I'm Liz M. Lopez, and I'm 100% dedicated to promoting the success of others. Make sure you hit the like button and stay tuned for more. Take care.